Hello, people on it. It's I, a no-name BT, here with another Rush Duel meta update. And it has been a while since the last one, and that's because I have been very late into remembering to post all of them. But guys, it has been 3 weeks since the most recent set release, especially after the July 1st ban list, and now the release of the triple build pack in June 24th, 2003. The meta has made quite a shift, and because I did miss a little bit, I will explain about what happened recently. We've had a big change to the format. Executing still technically standing very vaguely, but it has been Dark Sea Serpent Maximum and Wonder Fusion sitting atop Tier 1 as of recent. But after this recent set, the meta has completely shifted, and it is quite amazing. You're going to be really surprised on what's currently the best deck in the format. Now, to clarify on how I'm getting the listings for all the topping decks, I am using information released from the OTS stores in the OCG region. So any store that publicly released the information about their winners and their winning decks, I take them accounted for. If the entire profile isn't accounted for, I just note down the type of deck it is and I add in any information and I'll say which amount of percentage is missing from the complete outcome. And here we are, guys, the format that we're in. If you see this pie chart, and you will immediately tell what is happening. There's a lot of new changes, a lot of different decks you're going to be seeing in this entire chart. And to start us off, this entire chart is representing 33 decks that have won or topped within the last 3 weeks. And if you can immediately tell, there are a few cards in here and where you basically can tell they came from the triple bill pack, specifically Harpy and Music Princess. Though I'll get into more in those decks when I'm describing them later down the line. So first up, we have our primary topping deck is 7 Harpies, or 7 Harpy decks topping. So basically, this is going to be the main deck of the format as of current. Though this does not represent the whole participation of the event, Harpy Lady is known for being the mass majority of decks you're going to be seeing comparatively to others. Of course, you will still see a good number of other decks, but Harpy Lady is currently the most played deck. And of course, that does help it being the most consistent deck to win because it has such a high representation. It came along with such strong utility, a lot of powerful spell and trap cards which can just lock down your opponent for the entire turn. And along with past utility cards for Winged Beast, along with the newest Legend Monster Ryza, it is honestly an extremely powerful deck with a lot of self-protection, a lot of just things that can stop a duel or give you so much advantage. So it's not much surprise that it is a topping deck. Right after that is the best deck of the most recent format, which is Wonder Fusion. Wonder Fusion is, of course, still going to be remaining the best deck until something comes by to completely top it. It's not the best deck, it's the second best deck, or one of the more commonly played ones. With 6 representations, it's no surprise. A deck where you can just slap down one spell card, summon any powerful utility in your extra deck, primarily going to be Chariot or 7 Gias, or any other check card you choose. It can't be compared to. It's been a deck that existed long before any of these other archetypes have. Spellcaster and Dragons, Ryuma, that's existed since the start of the game. This card just completely pushed it out of the water. It's still a very powerful card, and it will be remaining a powerful card until we find something that can consistently out it. After that, we do have another new deck, which is, with 5 representations, Music Princess. I know that's very surprising. With the most recent support out of Triple Pack, they've become quite a threat. Now, of course, we're not unfamiliar with Music Princess. Music Princess once existed a few years back, I believe 2 years ago, with One Breast Gias. Basically, you would just put a bunch of Wind Warriors into your graveyard, stack your Dragias with a One Breast shot, make it 20, or give it 2500, and make it 4500 attack, allowing it to attack twice with piercing, obviously leading to an OTK. Though the strategy now vaguely changes. You do actually play the boss monster of the deck, but similar to Wonder Fusion, it has a Miracle Fusion of its own. Though this Miracle Fusion leads to some very different plays. The first primary monster of the deck, the main fusion, Discard a card to destroy all set spell and trap cards your opponent controls. Basically a Harpy Feather Duster on legs. And then another one which gives it immunity of destruction along with extra attack and piercing for a turn. So there is less choices comparably to Wonder Fusion, though then again, Wonder Fusion doesn't have the benefit of summoning one fusion monster and destroying all the opponent's back row, making it a Wonder Fusion with a lot more generic material and just a very good hand amount of support along with it being warrior. This deck has arguably been very good with itself. It's definitely a threat and something that you would probably have to keep out for. After that, we do have it's an obvious one. We have 4 representations of Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon isn't really that. It's it is a good deck. Don't get me wrong. They have gotten more cards as of recent sets. They gotten a new level 5, which counts itself as Cyber Dragon, summoning back a Cyber Dragon, and can special summon itself. And of course, it's I don't want to call it the hero of Rush Duel, the hero deck of Rush Duel. It is going to be a very common thing. It's still very powerful. It has OTK potential. It's just a little bit more sluggish than the rest, but due to, I would dare say, fan bait, a lot more people are going to be playing it, but I can't ignore the great amount of utility, the amount of power cards that Cyber Dragon does hold in comparison to most other decks. After this, we have 2 representation of Sea Dragon. Now, I'm not referring to Sea Dragon as the Sea Serpent deck. I'm referring to Sea Dragon as in Dragons plus Sea Serpent. A new Sea Serpent type monster has been making a great appearance in the current Rush Duel meta. And with that, people have also been playing it in some sort of dragon deck, which has multiple attacks on a lot of monsters. We'll be getting into that later into the video. After that, we have 2 Red Eyes Burn representations. Would you believe me if I said I'm still amazed that this exists? Though I think there is a visual error on the chart itself, but there is 2 Red Eyes representations. One of the oldest rogue decks of all time, a very casual burn deck. I say casual, it's been rogue. It just keeps coming back. I don't know how, but people find success with it. Good for them. 2 Blaze Fiends, 1 Light Galaxy, 1 Dark Galaxy, a new one topping with Monarch. That is honestly amazing. Congrats to you for topping with Monarch. I'm actually very much impressed. And it was actually pure Monarch as well. 1 Overroad, 1 Abyss Maximum. So that's kind of sad. You go from one of the most played tier 1 decks down to 1 representation. And then 1 5 God Dragon deck fusion. So obviously, this is definitely a format. So 2 of the topping decks are primarily low-level base. So, Cyber Dragon and Harpy Lady, they are both primarily focusing around level 5 monsters and level 5 and lower, and then using all their cards in their deck as a utility to support them. And then meanwhile, we have Music Princess and Wonder Fusion, which are both playing Miracle Fusion, which alone has shown that it can make the worst, well, not the worst, it can make a very okay deck into an incredible powerhouse. And just the recent representation, all the showings, really can make it tell. Anywho, let's get on to explaining some of the topping legend monsters. Whoa boy, you can obviously tell that I'm going to be extremely happy with this outcome. So before I say anything, Mushroom Man here is going to be representing decks that chose to play none of that specific card. It will be the same for legend spells and traps. Why do people choose not to play a specific type of legend card? I don't know. I just leave it to them to decide. So due to how decks are being shown in some cases, I only have 19 recorded submissions. And of course, if you can obviously tell from the most recent sets of Trope Build Pack releasing Ryza and the deck prior to that releasing Zaborg, Monarch is making its way to one of the strongest legend monsters since Pitch Black Werewolf and Luster Dragon, or Mirage Dragon, my bad. So we haven't seen any great shifting of legend monsters for a good long while prior to early Rush Duel meta. Well, that was before the Rush rule, but ever since the Rush rule, cards like Pitch Black Werewolf and Mirage Dragon have been the primary cards to play, just to lock down trap cards for the turn, because there weren't really many great options unless it was a very gimmicky strategy or just they had a high amount of confidence. there wasn't any reason to use most Legend monsters, but now with the release of Ryza and Zaborg, these offer one tribute removal, Ryza specifically, stacking any card on the field on top of the deck, including your own or your opponent's, means that it can physically out almost any card in the game, excluding Prison, the field spell Prison, which locks down tribute summons of level 6 and 5s, which you're going to be amazed does not exist in this format. So anyways, of the 19 representations, we have 6 toppings with Ryza the Storm Monarch. Yes. After that, we have 2 copies of Zaborg the Thunder Monarch. Now, with only 2 representations, you still have to understand Zaborg is still a very powerful card, though there is very little reason for you to choose it over Ryza unless specifically your deck can support primarily Zaborg. So if you're playing Thunder, maybe you might want to play Zaborg rather than over Ryza because you can recycle it. That's pretty much it. Or if you're playing a light deck, it's your choice. After that, we have a large sum of 1-ofs for different types of decks. We have, once again, Red Eyes mistakenly put at 1. It's meant to be 2. Pitch Black Warwolf, Jinzo, Dark Lord Zerato, Flame Ruler, the Creator, Mystic Elf, Cyber Alligator, Vanity's Fiend, and then 2 people chose to play none. So, besides the Monarch, you quite literally play whatever you please. There's not really much reason to think too much about Legend monsters, as some are very good, but at the same time, you have to bring them on field. They can still be affected by trap cards, they can still be affected by other effects, spells, and all that. It's very difficult to choose, so something you can use immediately, like Ryza or Zaborg, that's removal, it's really nice. But at the same time, always just choose the Legend monster you want for your deck, which you think would help out the most. Though, then again, Monarchs are amazing. Oh boy, it's time for the most miserable part for this, but this time, I'm kind of excited. Now, if you don't know, since the release of Darkhold, that has remained effectively a tier 0 spell card for Rush Duel, and it has been a huge power card and has yet to find anything to replace it. But let's see the tier list. Whoa! Would you look at that? It seems like Darkhold finally got the throne. Yes, of course, you're seeing it right. People have started to see Legend spell cards more for utility now that monsters have more layers of protection. A lot of them can't be destroyed by card effects instead of just trap cards. Darkhold's value has decreased quite a bit. Don't get me wrong, Darkhold, still a very powerful card. It's just a lot more cards are able to resist it, and people are starting to realize having utility such as Graceful Charity is, or as you see like Power Bond, Pot of Greed, all that, is so much better because these decks themselves are so powerful. You'd rather support your deck over than having one powerful card that can instantly just clear the board, or has the potential to clear the board. Now, of course, I'm going to go over each one, saying it. We have 18 representations. 6 of them are for Graceful Charity. Graceful Charity is just the best draw card for Legends. If you want to play Pot of Greed, you don't need the discard. You can play Pot of Greed, but Graceful Charity is so much better because a lot of cards do activate with cards in the graveyard, especially in a sort of format where everyone's playing Miracle Fusion, or a Wonder Fusion of sorts, we can say. Graceful Charity is just an obvious pick. You just need cards in the graveyard, you can use them as resources, they're very powerful. Then we have Power Bond with 4 representations. It's Power Bond. Of course, these are from all the Cyber Dragon decks. Every time you see Cyber Dragon, they're going to refuse to play anything that's not Power Bond. There's not much to say about this. It's a good card. Once you draw into it, you can slap it on the field, summon out Cyber Twin Dragon, and then you can easily OTK your opponent, or you can summon out Cyber End Dragon, deal 8,000 damage, or a large sum of piercing. It's a good card. This is going to be on every single tier list until Cyber Dragon no longer exists, or it'll still see more representation if we get some anime support from Jointech. After that is 3 representations of Darkhold. I just explained why this was a power card. Though, happily, 3 representations of Heavy Storm, which is kind of a big surprise. We've seen a lot of decks with monster cards that primarily focus around destroying spell and trap cards on their own. Some people say Sea Dragon Knight was pretty much enough, or some other utility cards in their deck. But now that we're going into a format where a lot of these top decks have really powerful back row, having a mass back row clearing is just very good, especially when you're playing something like a Harpy Lady. You don't really care about back row considering that your monsters do have built-in protection, but you still don't really have anything to clear the back row yourself. Then again, if you look at another deck like Music Princess, they themselves have a back row clear themselves, and that was enough to really raise them through the rankings. Then of course we do have the rest of it, which is one one copy of Monster Reborn and one copy of Nightmare. Yay! The Nightmare comes from a maximum deck, of course. Then one person chose to play nothing. I let them live with that. Of everything, spell cards are definitely the most free sort of legend card, considering that I personally say legend spells are arguably the strongest legend cards in the game. They have a large versatile card pool with many different effects. No legend card really does what most other legend cards do, to a sense. Now you could say there's a power creep between legend cards like Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed, Dark Hole, Tribute to the Doom, or, well, Power Bond and Polymerization do kind of have a difference. They all still have their own purpose, and they're all very strong cards, which you should at least consider playing if you can. Though that is all for the Legend spell cards. And now lastly, for the Legend tier list, we're on to the traps. And I must say, traps, of course, are always going to be fun. I love seeing the trap card tier list. It's always diverse, it's always changing, and you get to see a little bit of a surprise. Here is the Legend Trap tier list. Yes, if you can obviously tell right away, Torrential Tribute is on a falling path. Apparently, main phase interruption is not seeing as much play as it did before. That's because a lot more other main phase interruption trap cards that are non-legend are seeing more play, so you don't really have to worry about it. But battle traps are more in the need because that's where a majority of these current decks are playing in. They all want to be battle focused. They're not really concerned about main phase that much. So out of the 17 legend trap cards represented or shown, Magic Cylinder takes the top cut as 6 representations. Very good. The one trap card that does not destroy is, of course, winning. That's because, as I said before, a lot of these monsters have built-in protection, so you can't really do much about it. And if you're playing against maximum, you can just push back a large number. And if you're playing against sea dragons, you can hit them back again with another powerful punch. It's just a really good card, negating an attack and redirecting that damage to your opponent. It's always going to be a good card. And until we find another good trap card that probably doesn't destroy, Magic Cylinder is definitely going to be seeing more play. After that, we do have 4 representations of Mirror Force. Mirror Force, since its release, has still been a very powerful card. A mass board wipe, it doesn't matter, I know. Saying that destroying monsters have been on a very low amount of play, people still can side deck in a Mirror Force sometimes. You can't ignore Mirror Force. It's such a good card. It's full board clear, which is what you want. After that is 2 copies of Sakuretsu Armor. Some people are still playing Sakuretsu Force, supporting Sakuretsu Armor, so it is not a surprise. Then 2 copies of Icarus Attack, the most recent legend trap cards for Winged Beast. Basically, when your opponent activates a spell or summons a monster, tribute a Winged Beast, destroy 2 cards on their field. So this is a little bit different from the Master Rule counterpart, of course. Having a trap card that can react to specifically spell cards and destroy is really nice, but the main utility of this is used in Harpy Lady. So the reason why its representation is very low is because you have to specifically play it in Harpy Lady, and you would have to choose on, do you have a good offensive for a main phase, or do you have any protection for the battle phase, which is primarily going to be Magic Cylinder, though Icarus Attack is still an extremely good card. After that, we do have Malevolent Catastrophe and Torrential Tribute, 2 very powerful cards in their own representation. And then, of course, one person playing no trap cards. That is a bit more reasonable. Trap cards they're very good, they're very strong as well. They're not really required. Though, I do recommend, once again, you at least play a Legend Spell and trap card. Monsters themselves could possibly be passed over. Yes, that is all for the Legend cards. And now we go on to the more highly requested part of the videos, which is the showing of some competitive decks. Now, of course, the winner of the user of this deck is Kiros. Congratulations, Kiros, on your topping. So this is, I wouldn't say a primary example of Harpy, though this does represent of how the format is specifically played. So as you can see, it's a large sum of low levels. You're not going to see that many of these decks playing high level monsters. You will see a few possibly playing XQD, though not all of them, because XQD monsters don't really work directly with Harpy Ladies, though they're still very good utility cards. And you don't play that many copies of each Harpy Lady. Realistically, you play these cards for their protection, their removal. And like this card itself, Harpy Ladies L has trap protection. It's very good. You play the low level Harpy Ladies, gives boost, they stall your opponent. Then you play other cards like utilities. Specific meta staples as of right now is Rare Aquil, Sea Dragon Knight. You play Trick Pigeon. But then some of the cards that are the reason why these decks are good is Triangle Escassy Spark. While you control Harpy Ladies, 3 face up to 3 when monsters gain 600, then your opponent can't activate trap cards for the turn, the entire turn. And of course, they have cards like a Soul Charge with Elegant Egotist, which just brings back all their Harpy Ladies from grave. You have Full Dress, which gives them an attack boost, and Piercing if you control 1 or 3 monsters. It's very good. But while doing this, I will probably also point out a main utility of this format, which is Pure Glass Spears. Pure Glass Spears is a nightmare of a card. It's a 25/25 Sea Servant, which automatically makes it extremely incredible wall, changes battle position, then a monster gains 1000 attack and piercing. So this is not really indirectly specific to Harpy Lady, though this is a incredibly important card that you want to keep note of. This is arguably one of the more commonly used staples you're going to be seeing in this format. It is incredibly good. It's incredibly powerful. It being a self body that can give another monster piercing or give an attack doesn't mean that it itself has to attack, meaning that it can protect itself every turn. And using that with Grand Extreme is a very common strategy. Summon it from its hand, and then you can destroy your opponent's graveyard by shuffling cards. Now, of course, another staple I would like to put in for this deck is Mad Rare Aquil. Though it does have the effect of attacking twice, it has the other special effect of destroying your opponent's level 6 effect monsters, which have been incredibly more common if you use this with a card like Spaceship Turtle, or use this with a Fire or Ogre Oni. You can reduce your opponent's high level 8 monsters to level 6, or you can reduce them down from 7 to 6 or 8 to 6. You can use this to destroy those cards. Now they're not playing this in this deck, they're just using this as a primary just multi-attack monster, which they can easily boost with all their other cards. But still, this is primarily what you're going to be seeing from a Harpy deck, though some may not play Pure Glass, but most will. So speaking of the Sea Dragon deck, here is the nightmare itself. So of course, as I was saying, Pure Glass Spears, heavily played card, heavily played. You can play this at 3 copies each, or you can play them at 2/2, which is a vaguely common strategy of using it with. But of course, the primary use of this is from changing from attack position to defense position, then stacking other monsters that can attack multiple times. Primarily point, multi-strike dragon Dragias, of course. He can attack twice, make him 3500 with piercing, he can attack twice. A very new popular card. It's not a new card itself, it came out in the strongest battle decks for Yu-Gi-Oh! Go Rush. Duel Quartzel. Basically gains 400 attack, and it can attack 2 monsters this turn. Another use for Pure Glass, making it a 2700 beater that can attack twice with piercing. Same thing with Mad Rare Aquil, just a very good card. And then, of course, you pair that up with some generic choices that you can use as a start of Goblin, boosting their attack by 500, primarily the low levels. Sea Dragon Knight, just common back removal, and then you have all of your other support cards for the deck. Using Galactic Oblivion and Secret Order is a personal choice for this individual, though it is a little bit more common to see now that we have 2 copies of Secret Order. Thank you, Konami. And of course, they're also playing Heavy Storm, since this is a battle-focused deck. What do? You just slap a bunch of trap protection on cards, or you get back removal. That's it. similar to why they're playing 3 copies of Ghost Cyclone. Just destroy a card, draw a card, Heavy Storm, draw, destroy cards, summon your monsters, and potentially OTK or just kill more effectively. Now, finally, for there's going to be 2 showings of these profiles because there are multiple. There is Music Princess. This is I consider this a very important one to show of how simple the deck is and how it doesn't really stray far to what it originally is. As you can tell from this profile, you are still playing a large sum of the normal monsters. That's just because they're Wind Warriors. You don't really have much of a choice in terms of variety, but they're still very good. Of course, people unironically playing Dingsu and Ensemble is quite amazing. So, first thing I'm going to say, you're going to see people primarily playing Ensemble, the Music Fiend, Ensemble Bullfighter. It is the primary win condition of the deck, locking down your opponent from trap cards during the battle phase, and it just having arguably the better fusion monster in terms of just destroying your opponent's back row. It shows more importance. If you're going to be seeing a Music Princess deck, you might not see that many Dingsus, but Ensemble Bullfighter definitely is going to be the primary one. Some of the other good utilities from it is Trombanche, which just sets the deck up. It's really nice. And you're playing cards like Saketsu, the Talismanic Warrior. It's been a hot minute for me. And then the primary card of the deck, which is Music Princess Dance. Basically, you have to have 5 Wind Warriors in the grave, then Fusion Summon. That is all. So it's not much of a surprise that this is the deck, but if you're going to be playing this, just know that Bullfighter is the main card to focus on. It is a really good card. And if you're curious on what's the majority of trap cards that people play from the most recent set for Music Princess, people aren't really playing the trap cards. They're not great, though you sometimes see a single copy of Requiem. It's an okay card, arguably, though you preferably don't want to play it. You're not going to be seeing many people play trap cards in these decks because, similar to the Sea Dragon deck, this is a fully offensive deck. You just want to burn through your cards. You want to go through your deck, slap down a Miracle Fusion, then you just go in for the kill. This is another showing of Music Princess in just terms of how it is played. This one does have a significantly smaller amount of princesses itself in terms of Wind Warriors. That's because this is a specific deck I chose, which is showing off the use of Sky Savior engine, which has appeared at least twice in what I've been able to see, which is still an option to play. It's not the best build for it, but it is another option to play because just to let people know it exists. I've played against this deck a few times myself. It is pretty good. It is pretty good, specifically because the Floodgate. This is not showing the extra deck if you don't know. Sky Savior and Music Princess, you're still going to be playing multiple copies of all the extra deck monsters. I just simply forgot to add them in. But yes, 3 Bullfighter, of course, 1 Dingsu, not going to be surprised. Then your regular package for Music Princess. You're always going to see Bullfighter, you're always going to be seeing Trebuchet, you're always going to be seeing Horns, and you're always going to be seeing Baton. Those cards, regardless of what your build is, those are always going to be your primary cards, and you just fill the deck with whatever else you need. Outside of that, of course, is the simplistic just Sky Saver engine. They're focusing more on the milling aspect of the deck in terms of just mill your deck with these the fairies, get more Wind Warriors in your grave, and then you can just fusion summon or Hatback Fusion, fuse either side. Now, the great part about this is the Sky Savers do lock you into only attacking with the warriors, Celestial Warriors, or Fairy monsters. Just so happens that the Music Princess fusions are warrior monsters themselves, so it is very effective, it is very powerful, including the utility of CO and Dukins. It's really nice. It's really good. Affecting your opponent's monsters for when you can clear the back row with Bullfighter, then you can go in for the kill with any other monster you particularly have on board. Though it is still a very interesting way to go about it. Well guys, that is all for the video. I hope you all enjoyed the meta update. I don't know when the next meta update is. With the release of the next set, it will be 3 weeks after that. Once I get a date, I will probably write it down in the description below, or I'll announce it for when the video is going to come out later down the line. But yes, I hope y'all are enjoying the format, and I hope y'all will continue to enjoy it and see y'all playing some more of these decks. Anywho, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all next time.